Have faith of a mustard seed. Get up on your feet. Rise up.
Welcome to another segment of the Drexel Seymour Show. It's always a pleasure to bring stories to you, and the whole idea is really to inspire you, to encourage you, to influence you. Because I know some of you perhaps are going through similar issues, and you perhaps, have given up. But when you see these stories, when you see these testimonies, the idea is to provide you with some type of hope, because it can also happen to you. Now today we have a very special guest, Mr. almost the Honorable Mr. Oscar Talbot, who will be sharing his story with you. Oscar went through an ordeal in his life where he had colon cancer, but thankfully he's here today with us to share his story. God allowed him to God spare his life, and he's here to help you. And I believe that's why it's important for us to share stories, because sometimes you don't know who's out there just waiting to hear something from someone. And with that said, I want to welcome Oscar Talbot to the show. But before we do that, I want Oscar to introduce himself to the public. And welcome to the show, Oscar.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Thank you very much. It's good to be here with you today. Good to be back. My name, as Mr. Seymour has said, my name is Oscar Talbot. I am first of all, a born-again believer. I believe in Jesus. He's the Savior of my life. I currently serve in the capacity at End Time Harvest New Testament Church of God as the Director of Evangelism. From a marketplace standpoint, I am the principal owner of Y Solutions, an end-to-end IT company and a cell phone store called Jafu Limited. But most of all, I love God. And I'm happy to be here with you today, Mr. Seymour, to talk a little bit and share so others can receive encouragement from my, shall we call it, a success story in a good way.
It is a success story.
Yes.
It is a success story. So tell us how this started. Because I remember you on a trip, right? Yeah, with your brother or something like that?
Yes, I was on a trip.
And tell us about
that. That's a good place to start. My brother Errol in White phoned me one day and asked me if I want to do a VIP checkup, and the way he explained it, that we will be able to get all our vitals, our main organs examined, and it's not multiple appointments. We can go to one hospital in the Dominican Republic, and they will take care of all the appointments, and it would be just from seeing one specialist, performing one test after the other. And this was like a month before the occurrence. I agreed with him. I thought it was a good idea because I've been having some issues with my abdominal area, my stomach area, and the treatment was ongoing here. The very day that me and Errol was supposed to take the flight to the Dominican Republic, I woke up with a terrible pain in my side. Of course, being man, this is going to go away. Yeah, I think I used Tiger Balm. I used everything there is. But during that day, Mr. Seymour, the pain progressively got worse. But we still took the flight because the following day we were anticipating seeing the doctor, and at least we were headed in the right direction with a more advanced healthcare system.
You can see the doctor there when you get there.
Yeah, literally. Like I said, it was progressively getting worse. We got boarded the flight, and it was getting worse and worse. By the time I reached I think we flew into Santiago in the Dominican Republic. By the time we landed, they literally had to help me off the flight.
Is that right?
Yeah, so they had to help me off the flight. Errol helped me into the car, and he was very, very compassionate and considerate. Still progressively getting worse. I thought I could make it through the night. And actually,
you didn't go to the hospital?
I didn't go straight to the hospital. I was
okay.
thinking in my mind, being a man again, I'm tough.
We don't like doctors anyway.
Nah.
Most of us don't.
That was approximately almost 7 years ago. I'm now 49, so that was around 41, 42 years of age. And you know, I had never spent a night in the hospital. So I was not looking forward to that. But God had it that I had to go into the hospital that night. They ran tests, immediately ran tests. They did an ultrasound, and what they originally thought it was my appendix that was inflamed. But further tests revealed that I think I had half the blood cut in my body that I should have had. I think it's normally around a 12, and it was around 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
So they had to do blood transfusion and prep me for surgery the next morning. So we went through the first stage of the surgery. When I awoke, I saw all these faces looking at me. You know, for those of you who have been through a surgery before, you could imagine, you could relate. And they called the doctor and the operating surgeon, and she said to me, "You want the good news or the bad news?" I smiled. And I said, you know, just tell me. And that's when it was revealed it was more than just an inflamed appendix. The appendix had inflamed and pushed up against my colon, where a tumor was on my colon. And they operated. And initially, they had told me the cancer had spread throughout my body.
Oh, wow.
So, and they had concerns about my liver and some of the other major organs. So, that was the first stage until they put me on meds, looking after me post-care, but I started swelling. They were feeding me through tubes and so on and so forth.
That's like 2 days later or a day later?
That was like a day later. They rushed me back into surgery. I think it was literally the following day or 2 days later, and they found that my intestines were further damaged by a foreign object where they deemed to be a bone, and I believe I still have it.
Oh.
So they were further damaged to my intestines, which they affixed a colostomy bag. So that was that. But even post the second surgery, the swelling still won't go down. We were still having complications. And I think the major turning point, few days after the surgery, they almost lost me.
Really?
Yeah, they almost lost me. So my ex-partner at the time, she was very, very prayerful, very supportive. And we had a host of family and friends, and I'm sure you knew about it.
Oh, yes.
We've been friends, and we had pastors praying and other folks praying and other well wishes, passing on good sentiments, and all of that sort of, supported me through the whole ordeal.
So that prayer made a difference. Significant difference.
A significant difference. The next step was, we was at a hospital. It was not my preferred hospital, may I say, okay? Because it turned out to be an emergency. We were first night in town. They rushed me to the closest hospital, okay? So things was not improving as it should. So, I made the decision, lying on my back, like it's time to get to the best hospital in town, and many of you might be familiar with it. It's located in Santiago. Some people call it Metropolitan, but it's called Holmes Hospital.
Yes. I went to Holmes Hospital.
So
very good hospital.
You immediately notice the difference. My physician, to this day, I still have his number. I still do referrals. Now remember, coming into Holmes, we came into Holmes about 11:30 or 12 p.m. that night. So all the specialists, the abdomen specialists, all the specialists was not there. So initially they took me in. and you know, the doctors on duties, they attended me, and they phoned in for, I can remember his name to this day, Dr. Lidiano, and they gave me some attention while all the paperwork was being completed. We had documentations from the first hospital with the x-rays and all the various tests that was done. I must say, let me back up a bit.
Okay.
Because I smiled and I was still in high spirits, I had a quiet faith about myself.
So you were not worried?
I won't, because my first initial thought after they told me what happened, I said, I said to myself without sharing it with others, I said, well, thank God, I'm still here, I'm still breathing.
Because you say they almost lost you.
They almost lost me too. So in the first hospital, backing up again, they called a psychiatrist for me to check me out. They were really concerned about me.
Because you're being normal?
Because I was acting normal. But for me, I attribute that to growing up in a strong faith-based household. Yes. You know, around my father, around my mother, who believed in God from the time I was right. Folks say so high, yeah. You know. So that attributed to it. God gave me a sense of peace and assurance. Even while I was going through the early stages, you know, these early stages.
That's very important. Before you go further, that's very important, because I think sometimes people tend to worry so much, and sometimes they don't even die from the sickness. They die from being all this fret and worrying, and so you remain at peace in this regard.
Exactly, and I think that God was just present there with me. Mm-hmm. I cannot take credit for it, because, you know, under normal circumstances, you've got a death sentence hanging over your head that you have literally no control over, and then from the first reports, it spread through your body. Now we could go back and pick up from the second hospital. The doctor came in. They got him in. He got in about 1 o'clock that night.
Okay.
It was late. Let's say it was late, very late. And he walked in. They did the initial pre-test. They made sure I was stabilized and everything. You know, my sister Elva was there with me. She was very supportive, and of course we had the support of our wider family back home, So he came in. He introduced himself. And he came in, and he was carrying such a peace about him, and he introduced himself. We had an initial discussion. I addressed my concerns, because based on the previous first reports, it spread through your body. This is what's happening, you know, and it made it sound so critical. They told me, you might have to undergo chemo and radiation, you know, and it was like a death sentence, like I say. But he said, give him some time. He took about 45 minutes, went up, renewed my notes. You know what he did? He walked back down in the room, and I remember to this day, he tapped me on the inside of this leg right here. He said, Oscar, you're gonna be all right. I'm not taking you to the theater tonight. I'm gonna go inside with my team tomorrow, and we're gonna look around. I've heard your questions, concern about your liver, and they say it's spread, but we're gonna see what's happening tomorrow. So the following day we had our first. Now let's back up. This was in June, June of 2016. So the following day he took me to the theater. You know, this was much improved for me. I was able to focus more being less concerned about the previous hospital and the conditions at the first hospital. Now, you know, I could just focus myself on getting better than contending with other issues that was going on. They brought me out. It didn't last very long. I remember the staff. They was very friendly, professional, really caring. Brought me out, brought me back to the room. When I awoke, I awoke, and they called him in, and he looked at me. He said, Oscar, you know, this a little lesion on your liver, that's coming for people your age. The cancer hasn't spread anywhere. It was isolated to the colon. Wow. It did not spread. So you could imagine my mind, I'm saying, thank you, Lord.
Wow. It's a great thing you went to second opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second opinions is, it's always best. Even sometimes a third opinion. So here I am looking, the first doctor was a general surgeon. Here is a specialist of the abdomen.
Right.
And I said, you sure? He said, I held your liver in my hand. I checked each of your organs. They're perfectly fine, with the exception of the damage that the foreign object to the intestines. And my next question was, okay, how long will I have to wear this colostomy bag? He said, looking at the damage, it should be repaired within a year. You should be able to get a reversal surgery within a year.
Wow.
They admitted me, due to my state, they admitted me to intensive care.
So what stage was that, the cancer?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I double checked. That was something that I really didn't check for, but I know it was not an advanced stage. Okay. I spent a couple of days in intensive care. I remember I had a male nurse first time I had a nurse. That was new for me. But George is his name.
Wow, you have good memory.
Yes, when people treat you good, you remember them. George, I was a little bit apprehensive about it at first, but George, I could remember George to this day. I can remember all my doctors at home.
That's awesome.
They were super. Because there were some errors made in my first operation. We don't have to go in detail about it here. That led to complications and prolonged my stay in the hospital, because he said typically that I should have only been in the hospital for a week, a little or over. I ended up spending over a month in total in the hospitals. The hardest challenge for me, let's be transparent, was not being able to, at one point I was laying on my back, couldn't even move except somebody come and move me. I had to undergo physical therapy to learn to walk again. I think the lowest I dropped was down to 80-something pounds.
Wow.
The day I left the hospital, I was approximately 80-something pounds. The greatest challenge, I remember sitting there in the bed, trying to hold, I think it was...
I feel like I was in the DR when you were there.
I think yes, I called you.
Yeah.
You called me.
Yeah, I think I went to visit the kidney specialist. And I think I came and saw it.
Yeah, you saw me.
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, you did. You were involved.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. So the biggest challenge for me as a man, let's go back to the man in me.
Yes.
Was not being able for over a month, 30-something days, being a businessman, an entrepreneur who was at the head of what I do in my business, being the key person, driving the vision and so on and so forth, having to lie there in the hospital bed. And my phone, I think it was an S7, Samsung S7 then,
Okay.
I remember this so vividly because it felt like I was lifting a block.
Wow.
So that was my challenge. I mean, mental.
You felt handicapped.
Yes, not being able to get up and walk about and do the things that I normally do. That was, I can remember that vividly, and we watch spiritual stuff on television, and these things they're etched in my memory because of the amount of time I laid on my back and couldn't do anything for myself. It was the time when they was taking the vote on Brexit.
Oh, it was back then.
Yeah, it was back then. So, yeah. So, but I was able. I had some mile markers to meet. I had to be able to walk. We had good staff there that helped me every day. I was able to walk. I was able to start eating on myself after about 2 weeks.
But you still felt at peace, though.
I felt at peace all along. I felt at peace. It may sound odd. I was not necessarily concerned about the cancer, because I believe God gave me an inner assurance that I'm going to take you through this,
Right.
you know, without even being able to express it at the time. I had an assurance. I felt at peace. So there was one more condition after I was able to walk again, that I had fluid, built up fluid inside me. And they had to, and I remember I just want to get out. If I get out, I get out of this environment, I'll begin to feel better. And I remember they did a procedure, inserted some tubes into me and put some bags on me, and they said, we're gonna send you away for a couple of days, and this should improve the situation with your meds. And that was the requirement for them to return me back to Turks and Caicos. That went very well, needless to say. They were able to set a date and return me to the Turks and Caicos. I had to, you know, travel in a wheelchair. I remember I was still frail and weak. I had great family support, great pastoral support from the church, and so on and so forth. At this point, I would like to mention somebody, the premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands, called me twice while I was laying in bed. And that was a great blessing. He reached out to me. He had some stuff to sort out. Honorable Rufus Ewing.
Okay.
I mean, for your country's leader to reach out to you and to be concerned about you, that speaks well of the individual in his character. And I'd like to mention that because he didn't have to. He sought out after some affairs relating to
He's also a medical doctor.
Yes, very good. Relating to my care, and it went a very, very long way. He called me 2 days in a row, and I have to mention that.
Nice.
It was a blessing to me while being there. And so many other people called and phoned and gave support. So I was able to return home. They met me, my nieces and nephews and sisters, brothers, family, met me to the airport. They literally bought flowers for me. All of them did come because, there was, I think from my mom's side, I'm the eldest, I was the eldest uncle and thing, and then I'm the eldest son. So it was a bit too emotional for them to see me in that state. I got back home, and I had to transit the care here at the hospital. And now, in hindsight, I understand that they don't cater to. They cater to cancer patients through an oncology nurse and the visit of an oncology physician. So I should not have expected the level of care as I would have if I was in the Dominican Republic. So I quickly transitioned to the UK, where they had specialist teams waiting on me, and it went very well. My care went very well.
How long is in the UK for?
I think I spent, that was 2016. Remember, I had the ileostomy.
Okay.
And they did a number of tests. I had to do regular tests and so on and so forth. The care was excellent. The reversal was done in October 2017.
All that was done in the UK?
All of that was done in the UK. I had my first dose of chemotherapy here. Dr. Burgess, the next great doctor.
You did it.
The first chemo here.
Was a very great doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Burgess, him and his team put in the port, and the chemo nurse and the doctor, they set up my treatment plan, and they were very helpful. And I'm grateful for physicians and all the medical team that looked after me here. But because of the stoma that I had, okay, they had no special care, and I was experiencing challenges with that. I was delaying my travel to the UK until I regained strength and was able to. But eventually I had to forego it
So you don't
and
want to
travel.
risk.
Yeah. So I got to the UK and all the specialist teams, all the care that I needed was there. It was challenging at times, but God saw me through it all. So
What are some of the challenges? You say it was challenging at times. But...
cold weather.
Oh, okay.
Cold weather, having to stick to the routine, because they did not only look at they did not only treat the cancer condition, but they started looking at my heart and monitoring. Yes, so they ran a lot of tests and so on and so forth. So needless to say, I couldn't properly work or have a social life for over 17 months. So, but in October, I remember when they did the reversal. I was really looking forward to it. I could remember the doctor. I could remember everybody. Dr. Braun was my oncology doctor. Dr. Sue Craig was my surgeon, my specialist colorectal surgeon. So it went very well.
That's very good.
So I was able to return home and continued the follow-ups with the InterHealth Canada team, who was very gracious to me up until last year when they were seeing me on my regular schedules. Now I am due for checkups.
So even though everything is fine, you still have to go every year?
No, I'm past the 5-year mark now.
Okay.
So everything, even the samples the slides that we took from the original surgery in the United Kingdom, we took it to the UK. They ran the special tests. Everything came back benign. So it's unlikely to return.
Awesome.
So
Praise the Lord.
it's unlikely to return. But through that whole ordeal, I was not walking with God like I should. Since then, He's restored my faith. As I've said, my first priority is to fulfill God's purpose in my life, and I am thankful for a second chance at life.
So, based on what you went through, Mr. Talbot, what advice would you give to not just men, but to people in general in terms of checking their health? Because it's just so happen you have that pain. I don't know, some people may not have symptoms. I don't know much about how it works. But because of that pain you have, and you said it progressed so much, then I'm taking to the hospital and I'm into DR. What advice would you give to them? And prior to that, were you doing annual checkups?
I were seeking attention about my stomach issues.
Okay.
Sad to say, I kept being promised we're gonna do an endoscopy, and it never occurred. All right. My first colonoscopy was done post cancer. But to answer your question specifically, I would first of all say to everybody, we have a healthcare system here. That is your first stop. Especially if if you pass the age of 40, or even if you have a family member who had cancer, you should start getting the initial checkups. I strongly encourage you to see a doctor regularly. I used to do annual checkups, and it's not something that they would necessarily check for because we had no history of cancer in my family.
Okay, that's a good point.
So we had no history of cancer in my family, but now all my children have to do it, and other family members have to do it. So I would encourage people to make regular visits to your doctors, and especially follow through with all the appointments they give you. That's very important opportunity at life, especially if it's a life-threatening disease. So visit your doctors.
Yes.
See your doctor. That's the first thing you could do. And when, like now,
And get a second opinion.
My doctor of oncology here have referred me to internal medicine, and I go to see them religiously, independently. They give me tests to do. I follow through with the tests. Whatever appointment they give, I follow through with that. I take personal responsibility of that and thing. Now, one of the things I've done since my bout with cancer, I went back to homes and did what they call a VIP checkup. They have a different list of different things that you can do. That is now due for me, and they give you a good report, and if there are any concerns, they allow you to speak to the specialist and so on, and they have the specializing consultants right on hand. If you are able to afford it, if you want a complete checkup, that might be an option.
It's not that bad. The price is not that bad.
The price is not that bad,
Yeah.
and the service is excellent.
Very good hospital.
And they're able to get it done with, all the tests done within a day, and so on and so forth. So I've had my heart checked, liver, prostate, everything checked. So.
Okay. What other lessons have you learned from this ordeal that you went through?
The outside of the importance of having a relationship with God, the second institution that God created is family. You keep your family close to you. Show them love. If you have children, show them love. Be very supportive. If you have grandchildren, show them equally amount of love. Keep your family close to you, and above all, have faith in God. Above all, have faith in God.
That's a very good point, actually, about the family. I realize in times of sickness, it brings family together.
Yeah.
At least I've seen it. Of course, sometimes it takes family apart, but most times.
But when you have this, it's a big difference when you have that support of your family too. I remember my granddaughter Jada, Malcolm, Janie, my eldest daughter, her daughter. Jada, just Jada enter the room, Janie is to bring her by. Just Jada enter the room, it's a breath of fresh air. She gives the joy she brings, it lightens, and she's concerned, she shows her concern in her way, and she relates to you, and you can hear through her questions and how she relates to you, she care. And that's when people care, when they show they care, and you can hear they care, and you can feel they care, that is good medicine too.
Yes.
And I remember Elisha, my youngest son, who was, Elisha's about 14 now, he's probably about 7 then. Being around him every day, being around my children every day, it was amazing.
That's awesome.
They lift me up in ways that I cannot even describe.
And it also push you more to say, I gotta live.
You gotta live.
To see these children grow up. Be there for them.
I remember after my chemo sessions, I went to Christie's in Manchester. That is, what is considered one of the top cancer facilities, cancer treatment facilities. I would go in and I'll go through my chemo treatment at the hospital, but they would attach a little chemo bottle on me, and it would last, I think, 24 to 48 hours. And literally, I had treatment every 2 weeks. So that would take up a whole week, because while the chemo is in your body, you feel numbness, you're tired, it's burning sensation, and so on and so forth. But one of the things that I used to look forward to is to cook. Every time. I remember Oscar, my eldest son, Oscar's to set the table. he jokingly said, I'm going to take out the fine china Dad is cooking.
That's nice.
And I looked for things while I was away, because it was a challenge with the cold and all of that, and not being in your familiar environment. I'm an island boy.
I know, right?
I found the fish market, and they found red snapper, and so those all those little things help, you know. But more importantly, being around family and their support.
Yeah.
You know, you have God with you, but that human touch, nothing is compared to it, you know.
So many chemo sessions you had?
Okay, I think they had it scheduled for 12.
12?
Yeah, so I had to do one every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But due to they found, they initially thought there was something wrong with my heart, so they stopped it at 9.
Okay.
They literally admitted me to the hospital for a week because I had a fever. That's how deeply they cared.
Yeah,
they didn't take no chances.
Right.
I literally walked around with a emergency card in my pocket. There was a hotline that would come to me. They would get me from anywhere if something went wrong with me.
Okay. So was it easy getting in the UK system?
Well,
with the health system?
Well, in my case, I was already registered because my family at the time was living there.
Okay.
We were paying tax. I was spending I think it was every 2 months I would go over for a month. We had property rented. I have you know, bills over there. So that I already had a history because I was already visiting my GP over there and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I asked because people watching the show may want to know if they could go to the UK, you know, like how you did it.
Well, no, that was because I had previous history and pre-registered. But what I can say about that to help, if you can, visit the UK. If you have family members there, visit. You have a British passport, a British citizenship passport, register with NHS. Go see a GP.
That's it.
That will get you in the system. You know, it's not like you're just showing up and with a chronic illness and expecting care. Yeah. You know, so pre-register, get registered, visit, get registered. It could come back to benefit you at the end of the day. You have, you know.
Yeah.
Great.
Now I noticed when you were going through the camp, you lost a lot of weight. How much weight did you remember?
I think I lost in excess of 120 pounds.
Is it that much?
I was really frail. Remember, I had to walk again, learn to walk again. When I came out the house, I still have photos. I look at it to remind me, and my simple expression to myself is thank God. You know, I will, you know, my eyes were sunken in my head and really frail, you know. I don't mind losing some of this. You know, I've recuperated well. But yes, it was in excess of, I think my average around that time was 199 to 200.
Wow. So you have pictures?
Yeah, I have photos.
Send me a picture.
I'll send you.
I want to show it on the video.
Yes, I will. Of course, man. I can. I have, you know, I just remember laying there some days in the hospital bed. I can't even move, and they had this big bandage on you, and you just gotta lay there, you know. I lost a lot of weight. Wow,
God is good.
Amen. He is.
This whole process of recovery took you 17 months. You said earlier. You said
it was 2016 June that we did our first I did the first operation, and it was about October of 2017 when they reversed the ileostomy.
Okay, so about a year and 4 months.
Yeah, it's about a year and 4
and
5
months. And so after they reversed it, after you did your chemo session, you were free?
No, I had to do follow-ups. They give you appointments. I think at that initially I had to see them every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Then they changed it to every month, and kept it on monthly for the first couple of years.
Okay.
They had to do. I did colonoscopy. That's very critical for people who was exposed to colon cancer. I've done it in the UK. I've done it here, and that's one of the critical tests that you have to do.
Okay.
They check the internal inside of your intestines for polyps and so on and so forth. They've never found anything else cancerous in my body since. Nothing. There's no cancer. There's no cancer. The other thing that you want to check for, and maybe this might be a good tip, Rex. The CEA, it's a blood test that they perform to that indicates if the presence of tumor is in your body. So your average is, I believe, if I recall correctly, it's 1 to 5. If you on 5 or above, you should be talking to an oncologist.
CEA.
So CEA. It's done through a blood test. I remember that was one of the tests they did every time I went to see them, and that's what they check. And they say, your CEA is good. And I say, yep. So
I know you said you was at peace when all this was happening, and you also said that you probably was not in a strong relationship with God at that time. So did all of this brought you closer to God then?
Absolutely. I think that, well, that's I could call his name Pastor Jennings. God bless you. Pastor Jennings was one of those messengers. Even when I look back and I examine and I watch what was happening just prior to the sickness, I looked at photos. If I should have taken notice, because I began losing weight and I could see the difference in my face. But just prior to this, like I'm talking, Pastor Jennings is to come and see me, and reminding me, God has called you, Oscar. God is to give him a message for me. God has called you. Pastor Kim is to send me messages, but not more directly. He's more encouraging and whiting out. But Pastor Jennings had direct messages. There was literally one time that Pastor Jennings came to my business address, and he was knocking on the door and was early. And I was telling him, we're not open yet. I know what Pastor Jennings was coming for. And he said, no, and he was outside making signs. He was so humble and he was persistent. Yeah. And I opened up the door and he said, I'm not being long. You know what I came for. God is calling you. He's telling me to deliver you these messages. If you don't serve God, you're gonna die. That was his words. Now that was not the first time I heard that. The other instance, another instance, I think Pastor Jennings delivered 3 messages to me, specific messages from God. And this is right before,
June.
Before June. This was up to latest is May. It probably one of the instances maybe happened in June. Pastor Jennings, I saw him in IGA. And I was on one side of the aisle, down like where the eggs are kept, and he was on the front end. And I think he saw me, and he was looking for me, and I was playing this cat and mouse game, avoiding him. Because the state I was in, I didn't, I know what he was going to say. And I knew I had to heed. So I prefer for him not to deliver the message. And he caught up with me. He said, Brother Talbot, God say return to him. You must return to him, else you're gonna die. Wow. And I honor God for his servants who speak in my life, who spoke in my life, and continuously speak in my life now. And that this whole ordeal is part of my testimony. What God will do if he wants to get your attention. He'll send messengers, and he'll use different things to bring you to your place of destiny, to help you to realize that I've called you and I've placed you here for a specific work.
Yeah. Well, Oscar, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. What a wonderful story. Started off sadness, but it ended in success. Serving God, and you're still alive to share your testimony with the world. Any closing remarks you want to say?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. I think I've shared a little bit before on Facebook, and there were people from Grand Turk, different places, reach out to me personally. You may have somebody in your family that's facing a bout of cancer or sickness. Based on the profession of my faith and the word that I believe, that God is a healer. We see him, the examples. All you need is some faith in God. I would encourage anybody watching this video, everybody that's seeing this video, we all special to God. I'm no better than anybody. We're no better than anyone else. The word teaches us that all souls belongs to God. So I pray for your loved one. Pray for their healing. Pray for people who might be facing cancer or any form of sickness. Encourage them daily. Be their support. Be their voice. And if you are able to, lead them to Christ. Tell them about Christ. That's the best thing that you could ever do for someone, is to share the love of Jesus with them. Once again, thank you, Mr. Seema. God bless you.
Thank you. What a wonderful story. You've been listening to watching the Drexel Seema show, and I want to encourage you to get a checkup. And I know a lot of us don't like to go to doctors. I mean, Oscar had the pain, and he didn't want to go to the doctor, as you see in the story. But he couldn't take it any longer. He went to the doctor. It's a good thing he went to the doctor. He was able to diagnose him with colon cancer. So so you cannot, God has placed wisdom in doctors' hands, and sometimes you say waiting on the Lord. And God used people for you. He's not going to physically come to you. He's going to send people to you. So the doctors are some people that God are using. So go to the doctor, get checked out, and I also want to encourage you, not to give up. Sometimes when you hear someone have cancer, people think it's a death sentence. But Oscar had cancer, and Oscar is not there. He's alive.
Cancer free.
And if Oscar could be alive, he said he was not in right standing with the Lord at that time, you could also be alive. It doesn't have to be cancer or anything else. God is still the same God, yesterday, today, and forever. He's still the same God. If he could heal Oscar, he could heal other people, he can heal you. So with that said, I hope that you are encouraged. I hope that you are inspired through this testimony, this journey that Mr. Talbot has gone through. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel.